Welcome to the Law of Attraction Tribe. I'm your host, Stephanie Keith. I went from being a miserable corporate employee to becoming a podcaster, app creator, and best-selling author, all through the power of the Law of Attraction. So join me for bite-sized episodes where I simplify the manifestation process and help you manifest a life you don't need a vacation from. So buckle up, keep an open mind, and get ready to create your dream reality. Hey, you guys, welcome back to the podcast. I have some exciting news that I'm going to be sharing towards the end of the summer. I'm working on it now. It's something you all have been asking for a long time. It's long overdue. Not going to give too many details away just yet, but if you want to be in the know, then get on my text list so I can just text you directly when big things are happening. I can send you motivational texts every day. It's a lot of fun. All you have to do is text the word focus to 929-642-0103. And I'll send you all kinds of motivational stuff that'll get you to take action in manifesting your dreams. And you'll be the first to know when I have like really exciting things happening. So again, just text focus to 929-642-0103. All right, so today I have a guest on the podcast. Her name is Rebecca Zung, and she is a best-selling author. She has several books, but the one that we're going to be talking about today is Slay the Bully: How to Negotiate with a Narcissist and Win. Rebecca was in the top 1% of attorneys in the nation, and she was recognized by U.S. News as one of the best lawyers in America. I don't know if you guys can hear the crazy thunder and lightning outside, but it is storming here, of course, right as I hit record. Now, this conversation with Rebecca, I think, is something that everyone should listen to because we all deal with bullies in our life, right? We all have had those situations where there's toxic people that are amazing at manipulating, at flipping the conversation around and gaslighting you. We've all dealt with it, right? But very few of us know how to deal with it. How do you negotiate with a narcissist and win? How do you take back control and empower yourself to stand up to the bullies in our lives? It's so important. I'm so glad that someone is talking about this and giving us the realistic tips of like what we can do to take charge of the situation and not give in to these narcissistic bullies. So you guys are going to love this conversation. Let's go ahead and get into the interview with Rebecca Zung. All right. Rebecca, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. This is literally one of my favorite topics of all time.
I saw the email come through on narcissism and I was like, can she get on like tomorrow? Like, I want to know everything right now because, man, like we've all dealt with it, right? So many people I talk to are in that situation now. And so I was so excited for you to come on and just start talking about how we deal with this. How do we negotiate? How do we win? Because it feels, in my opinion and experience, it's like you never win with a narcissist. And so I can't wait to hear all of your suggestions. But I have to know, like, you have an impressive background. You went from like the top 1% of lawyers, and now you're speaking on all these stages and you're a best-selling author. Like, how did you make that shift and start talking about narcissism?
Well, it's very interesting though, because I really have manifested a lot of things in my life. You talk about the law of attraction, right? I have had so many different shifts in my life. I mean, I was the second in my class in high school. I was the salutatorian. Then I dropped out. I was my parents' dream. I'm half Chinese and half German. So my dad was a doctor. And I had like all these dreams for me. And then I got my version of rebelling was to get married at 19 and have 3 kids by the time I was 22, right?
Right.
And so I went back to law school, and at night I was divorced. I had 3 kids, and then I became an attorney, and I ended up working for a top divorce attorney in Florida, and then had my own practice, dealt with a lot of narcissists in my family law practice. So I really started researching narcissism to win in the courtroom initially, because everybody started saying that their spouse was a narcissist. And so that was kind of how it started. But then I ended up merging my practice with 2 other guys a few years ago, because I was really more of an entrepreneur at heart. And I ended up with somebody who ended up to be a narcissistic business partner. And I never really realized that narcissists could be women or covert or all of those things. And it really brought back feelings of when I had been bullied as a kid. And I, you know, what I kind of found out about myself was that it's one thing to advocate on behalf of somebody. And I was very good at that. But when the person was a peer, then I ended up not using my voice. And especially when the person was passive aggressive, and everybody else thought that the person was very, very nice and kind and humble and all of the things, I ended up sort of shrinking and not using my voice and going, well, I don't want to look like I'm the bad person. And, I ended up being the pleaser, and and trying to smooth things over, and all of this part of my personality that I didn't really love about myself so much, but it ended up making me feel horrible and bullied. And so that was really kind of how I started diving deep into the topic. The good part about it was, though, that I was already a master negotiator, because I had participated in thousands and thousands of negotiations, and I had already studied narcissism to win as a tactic in the courtroom and strategically and all of that. And so it was almost like my whole life had been a confluence of events to get me to here. So it actually during COVID that I started on YouTube talking about negotiation in general and that sort of thing. And then I did one video on how to negotiate with a narcissist. And that was kind of all of the sudden I took off. And, here I am just a few years later. I have like 50 million views on YouTube, and now I have all these programs, and I have a certification on teaching. I'm basically now cloning myself, and how to
Yeah.
become a high conflict negotiation coach.
I
So,
think it's so needed, and I mean, like I said earlier, it's like I feel like everyone I talk to, there's a story about narcissism, and you had said you dealt with that in divorces, and it's like pretty much everyone I know that has been through a divorce, that's what they say. Oh, my spouse was a narcissist.
yeah.
And I mean, I have 3 kids, and it's like no one teaches us how to handle that. And so I'm like,
Yeah.
I want to learn how to handle that as an adult, but I want my kids to know how to handle that too. Like, how do you handle the bully in your life that is usually, by the way, like very um good at manipulating the situation, and they can be very charming, right? And very like they can put on this show and sort of flip it around and make you feel like the bad guy. And so yeah, it's something I think we've all dealt with. And I know you call it you say high conflict personality. So can
Hmm.
you explain to the listeners like what that exactly means?
Yeah. So I mean, there's a narcissistic personality disorder, and that is a legitimate disorder.
Hmm.
And then there's a high conflict personality as well. I mean, and they're not always the one and the same, although person who has narcissistic personality disorder is always going to be a person who thrives on getting supply. And what that means is they just can't feel any empathy for another person because all they see is their own pain and their own shame. And they feel empty inside. They feel small inside. And so they just don't have the ability to meet anybody else's needs or see anybody else because they're just so empty inside. And so they have to get all of their feeling of value from external sources. That is distinct from, just a person who is just difficult or whatever. We all have aspects of narcissism to our personalities, but most of us have the ability to, oh, if somebody tells us that their dog died or there's something going on in their life, we have the ability to go, oh my God, that's horrible. Like we feel
Yeah.
that about them,
Hmm.
right? But a narcissist is just, it's almost like if you have a really bad toothache, you can't deal with that right now because you're just steeped in your own pain. And
Right.
that's what it is with them. So they just can't see that. So when you're dealing with a narcissist, you're just dealing with a person who is going to be zapping all of your energy. And that's why you feel completely and totally exhausted because it's all input toward them and no output toward you all the time.
Right.
Everything they do is a manipulation. Everything they do is a manipulation. And they don't necessarily know that. And because there was trauma that happened to the limbic system part of their brain when they were children, when we as adults or any as humans are in stress, our bodies emit chemicals, which are adrenaline and cortisol, to deal with that stress. But what happens as children, when that happens on a regular basis, the limbic brain is bathed in those chemicals and it causes arrested development to the limbic system part of their brain. And so when they're triggered as adults, that limbic system is actually triggered and it literally actually shuts down the cortex part of their brain, the thinking judgment part of their brain.
Your child has so much potential, but your local schools may not be right for them. Check out K-12. K-12 powered schools are accredited tuition-free online public schools for students in kindergarten through 12th grade. This is not your typical homeschooling. With state-certified teachers specially trained to teach online, your child will learn at their speed, at home, with innovative, engaging technology. Join the more than 2 million families who've chosen K-12. Go to k12.com/podcast to learn more. That's k12.com/podcast.
So, I mean, you could just like have a whole like toolbox of phrases that you can use so that you're ready to go. So that when they trigger you, you are just ready with a few things to say. And then that's helpful so that you don't feel like, oh my God, there they go again. And the other thing I say is SOS. So stop, observe, then speak. The other thing I always tell people, and you'll remember this hopefully because I'm half Chinese and half German, so I always wear jade because I'm Chinese, and I always say, but never jade, never justify, argue, defend, or explain, because you're never going to talk a narcissist into your perspective. You're never talking them into acknowledging you, seeing your side, or you're never going to get closure, all of those things that you are desperately seeking. It's just not going to happen. I know it's frustrating and it makes you so angry and it doesn't seem fair. There's no narc police that are going to show up at your door and go, "Oh, you can't do that. That's that's not fair." I mean, it just doesn't, it's not going to happen. So never justify, argue, defend, or explain. Okay? It's fine. They lie. That's what they do. They say things. They try to trigger you. That's what they do. Just expect it. Okay? So just go, okay, you're entitled to your opinion. Oh, or, just get curious. Oh, that's interesting. Why would you say that? Oh, that's interesting. What makes you think that? Instead of getting angry, just get curious, right? Just something
Yes.
like that. So that's, those are like the immediate things. I always say, like, give people, like, when I teach my coaches now, I always say, give them short-term things to do. Like, what can I do today? And then long-term, what's my vision? Where am I going? So that's your short-term and long-term.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's so helpful. And I think, having someone that can walk you through this and get prepared and anticipate what's to come is like, I've never heard of this before. Like, it's absolutely incredible. I think there's a lot of people out there that are going to be running to the sleigh methods so they can prepare because they've probably just been feeling paralyzed, like they don't know what to do next. And I think this is going to help a lot of people get out of these bad situations because we know, it's difficult. So it's pretty incredible. And I
Yeah.
have jade right here. I have a piece of jade next to me. So when you said that,
Love
I was like,
it.
oh, okay.
Yes, I love it. So my middle name is Yukong, which I was named after my grandmother, and it means jade and health.
Oh,
So
wow. I love
yeah,
that. That's
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
Well, Rebecca, thank you so much for coming on. I mean, this has been really eye-opening, just a wealth of knowledge. You're doing a lot of important work. Like this, we needed this. The world needed this. So thank you for coming on and sharing it with my audience. And I'm sure everyone's going to go and check out your book and your program. Any last remarks, anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to touch on?
I will just say, and this is really good, I think, for manifesting. People will think what you tell them to think. You can really manifest whatever you want. And I'll just, I don't know if I have time, I just want to tell a really quick story.
Yeah.
And that is that when I had first started my law practice, I had been practicing law for about 8 years. And then I went to become a financial advisor, a stockbroker at Morgan Stanley for like 2 years. And then I went back to practice law because I had an opportunity to take over a small law practice that a friend of mine, she was moving to Tampa actually.
Oh, okay.
And um, I was so nervous that the people in Naples, Florida, which is a very affluent community, were going to think that I was such a total flake. And so I had a business coach at the time, and he was still my business coach and still a very dear friend of mine. And I said to her, "Oh my God, everybody's going to think I'm such a total flake." And she said to me, "People will think what you tell them to think." She said, "You can tell them to think that you're a total flake, or you can tell them to think that you are the only family law attorney in town that has a financial background. So therefore, you are actually more qualified than any other family law attorney. So which story would you like to tell?" And I was like, "Oh, maybe I'll tell that story."
That sounds a little bit better, doesn't it?
So that was the story that I decided to project. Like,
Hmm.
people will think what you tell them to think. And so within 2 years, I actually had the top family law practice in that area. And I was representing billionaires and very well-known people, celebrities. There's a lot of people, well-known people that have homes in Naples that claimed there as their residency, right? And so I very much said, this is who I am. People will think what I tell them to think. And people who hired me that definitely were not going to be hiring a flake. But I had to tell that story. I had to show up as that. And it is very much about manifesting. It's very much about having that vision about who I was. And I very much said to myself or manifested that I was going to be this person. And there were all these, things that I had said to myself, this is who I am. I'm going to be, best lawyers in America. And I'm going to be on these covers and I'm going to be this. This is who I'm envisioning myself to be. And within a couple of years, I was actually a regular correspondent on Extra, and I was commenting on celebrity divorces and all of these things. But it was because I decided that that's who I was. So I really want people to know that if you enter the room as a strong person, as who you are, as authentic power, narcissists will shrink to you. They respect authentic power. They stay away from that. They look for people who have vulnerabilities. That's who they seek to prey upon. And if there's no opening there, they will they'll slink away and go find somebody else to prey upon. So people will think what you tell them to think.
I love that. And that is such a good story because you really did become like at the top. You were at the top of the industry and like all these incredible things like being on Extra and, best-selling author and everything. It's like you manifested that. You embodied that vision for yourself. And we think about manifesting, our goals and our dreams and everything like that. But another way to look at it too is like manifest the divorce like that you want or the outcome you want or like leaving the job or like when you're trying to exit that situation, like you said in the beginning, like get clear on that, have a vision. You can manifest that too. You can manifest the outcome that you want, and then you can step into the person that is going to be able to get to that outcome. And it's like those two things, you'll be powerful and you'll get through it.
100%. 100%.
Amazing. Amazing. I knew I was going to love this episode. Yeah, just so much. You shared so much with us. I really appreciate it. And last question, real quick. What are you currently trying to manifest? What's next up for you?
I am manifesting that my programs are in every corporation as required learning because there is so much around toxic work environments right now. And I am really feeling like a shift needs to happen with that.
My gosh, I have the chills as you're saying that. I came from a very, very toxic corporate work environment. And I think there's a lot of people, especially in management, that could probably use a lesson on narcissism and how to handle that. So yeah, I hope that happens too. That would be amazing. Well, Rebecca, thank you. You poured so much into this podcast. I appreciate it. Come back anytime and we'll be in touch.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you back here next time. If you enjoyed the episode, then pay it forward and share it with a friend. It's the best thing you can do to support the podcast and help share the law of attraction with other people. If you want more manifestation hacks, tips, and resources, then head over to my Instagram page at the Law of Attraction Tribe, or download the Manifest It Now app and check out my over 200 manifestation resources and tools. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you back here next time.